Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is really a great privilege for me in conjunction with Congressman Dennis Kucinich, who is the chair of the subcommittee on government oversight in domestic policy. And originally we had hoped this would be a hearing, but in lieu of that, we have this incredible opportunity to have Gordon Murray with us this morning. And in describing Mr. Murray, who is a constituent, I might add, I think of him more as a patriot than I think of him as anything else. Because what he is willing to do here this morning is the sign of a true patriot, someone who is willing to question his government when it is not doing its job, someone who is willing to tell the truth to power, someone who, at the point in his life where he wants to give back and have some semblance of an imprimatur on what his life was all about, Gordon Murray has stepped up in a very remarkable way and under some challenging circumstances to be here with us today. And I'm deeply honored that he has agreed to do this. He is someone who knows the financial institutions of this country and knows Wall Street like his own skin. He is someone who has spent 25 years in the business. He has worked for every important, impressive financial service industry company that you can imagine. He's been the number 1, 2, or 3 producer in the firms that he has worked for. So by no means was he ever a slouch in the industry. He was one of the stars. He's a graduate of Columbia School of Business and Chapel Hill's undergraduate. Again, 25 years in the industry, most recently with a company that really recognized the responsibility to provide services to the client first and recognize the fiduciary responsibilities associated with that. So I'm just deeply grateful that he's here. I'm deeply grateful to Congressman Kucinich for offering us this opportunity. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Dennis to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Congressman Speier, and thank you, Gordon Murray, for your presence here. When I first talked to Congresswoman Speier about Gordon Murray, she told me that here's someone who has some really deep insights into Wall Street, into markets, securities, from a practical experience. Congress has, for the last few years, been so embroiled in trying to sort out Wall Street finances and being able to discern how a collapse occurred. We often do this flying in the blind. We're not really sure of how circumstances came about. We really can't say that we have a thorough understanding of sophisticated financial instruments. Indeed, as has been commented by many analysts, it's been said that some of the people who created the instruments don't really understand how they work. But the Congress certainly, been called upon to participate in one bailout after another, and having before it a number of pieces of legislation that would purport to reform the system, certainly has an interest in hearing from insiders who are fearless, who are knowledgeable, and who can point the path towards reform. Gordon Murray is such an individual. He is, with the first conversation I had with him by phone, he's so fluent, so quick to be able to analyze what's going on and provide an insider's view that I felt it was important that not only that he come to Washington so that we could hear him personally, but also that in the brief meeting that we had yesterday, that some of the proposals that he has to try to better equip Congress to be able to handle the quite complex, sophisticated financial issues that we're increasingly confronted with, that we look at the reforms that he's suggested and that we act on them. So with that, I want to welcome Gordon Murray, and thank all of you for coming. As those of you familiar with the House know that we often get called to go to votes and other things, but you have our ear, and thank you very much for your presence.
It's my honor. Thank you. I just want to start off by contradicting one thing that Jackie said earlier, which was I was a star or one, two, or three. Actually, I think the way it used to work on Wall Street was you were part of a team. And, a star is something, I think once you start to think of yourself as a star, then you're in trouble in this business. So that's the only thing I would counter. But so it's with great humility.
You couldn't be in the Senate then.
So I'd like to begin my presentation by tackling the crux of the problem in the current debate over financial services reform. Both Wall Street and Washington, not surprisingly, operate in separate universes. Neither world knows exactly how the other works. Unfortunately, Wall Street has the resources to hire savvy Washington insiders to constantly game the system. Washington can't do the same. I'm going to give you some real examples of how this imbalance in expertise has played out in recent years, and respectfully suggest to you how Washington can level the playing field. Let's begin with a simple news clipping from the Wall Street Journal. Morgan Stanley to cut 10% of its brokers force. Now, I'm not picking on Morgan Stanley. This could be any retail brokerage firm. In this case, it was Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley, which has been struggling to increase the productivity of its broker force, will eliminate about 10% of its lowest producing brokers. In a memo to employees of the brokerage unit yesterday, the Wall Street firm said it will slash about 1,000 brokers in the next few months. It also said it's slowing down its training program. Morgan's brokers bring in lower average revenue, at this time about $470,000 a year, than do those at Merrill Lynch, $710,000, and at Citigroup Smith Barney, $538,000. Well, of course, since this article, we know that Morgan bought Smith Barney. But the point is, to many outsiders who read this, they might think that after all, Wall Street's a cyclical business and layoffs happen in any cyclical industry. But as someone who's been on the inside, I see something entirely different. God help Grandma and the other trusting clients of those retail brokers who are in that bottom quartile of producers. Do you think they're going to be called by those brokers and encouraged to buy safe, liquid treasury bills? Most likely you're talking the higher margin and probably riskier, less liquid securities. So why am I here? Because my Congresswoman Jackie Speier and Representative Dennis Kucinich felt that my insights and observations over a 25-year Wall Street career in institutional sales and management, and I think more importantly, as well as my experience in working with independent fee-only advisors and their individual investor clients, i.e. Main Street, might be helpful in your efforts to enact substantive rather than cosmetic financial reform. I'm here because I share Dennis and Jackie's sense of urgency that we now have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to get this right. And we must. Bubbles in asset classes will surely confront us again. And going forward, we need to be mindful that risk and return are related. Wall Street will continue to create new products. Some of them will be good for Main Street, and some will not. In my opinion, you need to understand them all, or fasten your seatbelts in case newer products, such as today's life settlement securities, or better known as death bonds, become tomorrow's auction rate securities.